Hello, hello. How's
Hey,
everyone doing? Hi, Simone. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing, Liz?
I'm doing well, and welcome to everyone joining us here today. I see a bunch of you just popped on. Welcome to Base Live. I am Liz Prue, VP of Marketing here at Base. We are the first ever platform built for assistants and administrative professionals, and we do these free weekly live events hosting wonderful folks like our lovely guest here today to talk all things professional development, personal development, goals, tips, tricks, all the things you need to succeed in work and life. And today's topic, or today's theme rather, is knowing your why. And I am so excited to bring you this discussion. I've spoken with Simone a handful of times, and every time I do, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need to get her message out everywhere. She's so wonderful. Simone White is the Executive Support and Global Chair of GAIN at BlackRock. And she's also a 2016 WATC Rising Star Award winner, an international motivational speaker, and advocate of the assistant profession. And in today's discussion, we'll be discussing that as assistants, it's crucial to understand that you work for your firm first and not the individual. And we're going to focus on how the assistant role should be based on what impact you have in fulfilling your position, no matter who you support. And let's just dive right in. I want to go ahead and introduce you all to Simone. Simone, hello.
Hello. You reeled off all of that, and I was like, okay, that's me.
That's you, girl.
That's so funny. But it's amazing. I'm looking at the chat on the side, and I can see, so we have Houston's in the house, and Midlothian, and Columbus, and Lake Forest, and Chicago, and Argentina. So hi to all of you who are live streaming today with us. I'm so grateful that you're here to hear this, and I hope this will be something that energizes you, motivates you, and you take something away, because I'm really looking forward to this.
Oh, good. We can't wait. And for those of you that aren't familiar with GAIN or BlackRock, GAIN is a network created to foster inclusion and belonging, enhancing the administrative framework through stakeholder collaboration, specialized training, and creating and formalizing administrative procedures. It really advocates for the administrative profession internally at BlackRock and externally through one-on-one and group mentoring, bespoke training. And Simone, I'd love for you, before we get started, to share a little bit about your role with GAIN. I know, and disclaimer, this is all on behalf of GAIN and Simone and not on behalf of BlackRock today, but I would love for you to share what you do at BlackRock and what led you to really lead the charge with starting GAIN.
Okay, sure, I can do that. It's actually been quite a long journey, so I'm going to try and suppress it just in the interest of time. But as you stated, so we have an internal assistant network at BlackRock called GAIN, and that stands for Global Administrative Initiative Network. Quite a mouthful, but we use the word GAIN because we thought with a network, we would all gain. So not only the assistants would gain, but those we support and our firm. So why was GAIN created? Well, we have a firm that has a lot of networks, and networks are a way for people who have similar either titles, or they have similar thoughts or similar problems, to get together and really collaborate. And we wanted that in the assistant space as well. So we created a network. First, it was created in EMEA. So I originally formed a network in our EMEA office called ACE, but at the same time and completely independently, assistants on the East Coast of the US, they created a network, and there was already an assistant network on the West Coast, but we all operated independently. And it was only after a while we realized that we had 3 networks, and there were lots of things that we were doing consecutively, but not really linking in. So for instance, we had all moved to a new building in London, and we had all of this lovely new technology, and we didn't know how to use it. But what we would have, and I'm sure every assistant on the call can relate to this, is our executives would be in a meeting room and they would want to change something on this lovely new equipment. And although there might be a note on the equipment saying, please call AV for support, the first person they would call is their assistant. and they would just assume that the assistant would know how to do everything. So it was a case of, well, we're new to this technology too. So what we did as a network was we reached out to our stakeholders in technology and said, look, could you provide us with training so that we are fully equipped, that when our managers call, we know exactly how to make an adjustment or load up a presentation or connect another office. So the network was really formed to give us that ability to connect with our stakeholders as a group rather than individuals, because as assistants, we tend to work in silos. So you may be the only assistant in your team, and then another assistant works for another team, but you have the same problem, but you don't really collaborate because it's in a different team to you. So the network was formed to do that and to give you a space for you to share the same experiences and to share knowledge as well, because there were other networks around the firm for that. And the reason why we specifically wanted an assistant one was we have a network, and I went to all of their events, and they strengthened me as a female professional. But a lot of the professionals in the room were finance professionals, whereas my specialization is administration. So I wanted somewhere where I could speak to somebody else who has the same issues that I do, or the same ideas, or where we could collaborate to make a change that would be better and support all of us. So I guess that's kind of where the network came from. And the EMEA network started in 2013, and then we went global in 2018, and I became the global chair. So now it's still quite weird to say out loud, but I am a global chair. I have a global in my title officially at BlackRock, but that's only part of what I do. So I still am executive support. I'm an executive assistant, and I support a group of 45 professionals in my team. So I still do the day-to-day running and administrative management of my team. But what has empowered me really and given me the confidence to do my role really well and to understand that I'm an expert at is growing out the network, because I've had to gain confidence to do that.
And what I think is so interesting and so crucial is this firm first mindset that the foundation of it is built off of. And when we first started talking about the organization, it was that so many administrative professionals come into their organization and think, I support this individual. And there are so many things that can happen from that can prevent you from really digging into that strategic side of your role and aligning yourself to that of the company. So can you talk a little bit about or share with us, when did that mindset of firm, I'm calling it firm first for the sake of the discussion, really set in? And how did that lead you to say, okay, we need to you dove into it a little bit just now, but we need to formalize this across the board?
Well, it's really interesting because I've been an assistant for 20 plus years. And I love what I do as an assistant, but it was a couple of things that made me begin to realize maybe I need to adjust my mindset as to what my role is. So originally, I was an assistant with a team, and I was the EA to a global head. Now, that was brilliant. I had my role in the team. I was established in the team. People knew what I did in that team. But my role was put at risk of redundancy because there was a shift in the team. And I was put at risk of a redundancy, and it was because of something I was doing that people knew me for, why I wasn't made redundant. And at that point, I thought, oh, brilliant, this is great. So I got to know my new team. I was really focused on that new team, making sure everything I did there was great. And then about a year and a half into that, I fell pregnant with my first child. It was planned. I also knew that I wanted to come back to this team. So as organized as I am, when I spoke to my boss and let her know that I was pregnant, I also said, I'm planning to come back in 10 months' time. We're in the UK, so we have a long maternity leave. And I put everything into play so that I would come back. And then during that time, our company merged. So when I came back, I was there, that team was no longer there. And it was then I started to realize that as assistants, we are so focused on, even when we introduce ourselves sometimes without saying our name. We will say, "Hi, I'm the assistant too." And when you say that, you are I can't even say the word, you're intrinsically linked with that person. And so when people are saying, "Oh, why don't we get this person to do it?" They don't know your name. It's that person's assistant. And I think sometimes that can negatively impact us, even when it's not a big change like the two I went through. But it could simply be something that the executive that you're working for moves internally and takes another role, and a new executive comes in. If you are intrinsically linked to that first executive, that can really throw you. You can think, okay, this new person's coming in. What will they want me to do? How are they going to change my role? How are they going to impact it? And I realized, actually, if I'm the assistant and what I do is defined, it shouldn't really matter who sits in the chair or who I'm supporting, because ultimately it's my firm who employs me, and they employ me for a specific reason. So any new manager coming in, I normally ask them what it is that you're looking for the team, what do you want the outcome to be? And then I will say how I can help support that administratively. And that is really empowering, because I know what my role is. I'm not waiting for someone to tell me every time what I want you to do. And it's really important. And that's where I think my set shifted. And that was only 7 years ago. So for 13 years, my focus was more than 13 years. My focus was, let me do the best for my team. Let me do the best for my executive, because my executive is who I'm there for, and it's all about them. And that's not actually wrong, because you are there to support them, but you're actually there to do what the firm wants you to do. And when you know that, and you know what the firm expects of you, that is so empowering.
How do you think that's impacted your career trajectory, just that mindset shift over the last 7 years versus, the over a decade before that? Do you think how has it affected it, I guess?
It's affected it in a big way. So before that, I was always very good at my job, right? So that it's not that I have necessarily got my skill sets in regards to my tasks that I do have got better. My understanding of what I do and what I bring to the firm has definitely got better, because now, because I understand what I'm supposed to do, if one of my executives are saying something, "Why don't we do this administratively?" and I think it's wrong, I don't say, "Okay, let's do it." I'll say, "No, look, if you do it that way, these are the impacts. But if we do it this way, this will actually benefit you, the team, and we'll move forward from here." So now my role is about bringing my specialization to the table, because I'm the specialist at administration. My team, they're all investment managers, portfolio engineers. That's their specialization. So if they ask me something about that, I don't really have an input to it, because it's not what I know. But I am the only one in my team that understands administration. And so when they ask my opinion, I make sure that I know the answer. So I think what has happened is, instead of only just focusing on this is my here and now, this is what my team want now, I now think, okay, what's changing around me? What is the team going to be needing in 6 months' time? What's happening in 7 months' time? And I'm looking through an administrative lens. And a really good example of that, most probably now, is to think, we've been working at home for a year, but at some point we're going to be going back to the office, but it might not necessarily be the same. So I call it hybrid state in my mind. So I'm already thinking, okay, if I have some people working from home and some people working in the office, how am I as an assistant going to be able to look at that 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance, so that I can plan meetings accordingly, so that when I'm putting in a catch-up coffee, I don't automatically put virtual coffee, because actually they're both going to be in the same place at the same time. So because administration is what I do, I'm thinking of that. My executives don't have time to think of that. And that's where I think me understanding my why, or knowing why my organization employ me and what my role is, that's where it's changed, because I'm not just thinking the here and now. I'm thinking, what can I do to make things more effective, more efficient, run more smoothly administratively, because that's my responsibility.
I'm going to jump to an audience question that was submitted beforehand. Usually we save those for the end, but this fits perfect with what we're talking about right now. And if some of our listeners and viewers here today don't have an internal organization, and I saw some of you in the comments said that you did, but it wasn't super formal. Some said that you did not. One of the questions that was submitted was if you could share any examples of how we can structure our objectives or align with firm goals and move beyond kind of the generic and consistent ones. What are some first steps that folks can take today if they don't have an internal organization like GAIN? Because I know you've said that GAIN has, it's a part of orientation. It's awesome. It's formalized. But if someone doesn't have that right now, where can they start in approaching this?
I think it's really important that every organization is different. So GAIN was created specifically for the firm that I work in, BlackRock. It wouldn't necessarily be cookie cutter to come and sit somewhere else. When we created it, I had the advantage of it was a firm that already had networks. So we structured it so it was the same, so that other people looking at it already knew what to expect. The focus was just administration. But that being said, when the network started in EMEA, we were originally just a PA network, and we would get together informally every once in a while. But what I found was that having sat on previous networks are there for a reason. So it was, what is it? What's our mission? What is it that we need to change? What's our goal? And creating a network, you have to know what your goal is. So why do you want to do it? So again, know your why. Why is it that you want to, if it's a group of 5 of you or 4 of you or 100 of you, why do you want to create something like that? Because if you don't know why you want to do something, you will never reach your goal. You have to know why. But once you know your why, it takes a couple of you. It will be hard work for you to do something on your own. So if it's 4 of you or 2 of you, the 2 of you connect. What things are we missing? What's the gap? Or if it's a larger amount of you, just get a group of you together and brainstorm as to why would this benefit us? Now, that's the network element. The other part of that question was around how do you align your goals to the firm's? So one, you have to know what your firm's goals are. And I'm in a huge organization, right? So when I look at my firm's goals, they're then cascaded. And this is a matter of course for my firm. We have our firm-wide goals, then they're cascaded regionally. The region have filtered those down. And then within my team have their goals. So I always make sure that I have visibility to what that is. So I want to understand what my team's goals are. I then found out specifically from my executives what theirs are, and then I figure out how I can support them. Now, because of how our firm works, I don't necessarily need to know what their strategic objectives are, and I say, okay, I'm going to take this strategically away. My team manage funds. I can't manage funds, so I can't do that. But what I can say is, okay, this person's remit this year, they have 4 major priorities. Let me know what those 4 major priorities are, who the stakeholders are, what timescales they're going to need for it, whether they need prep time, what the materials may be. And I ask them what those things are, and I build that in as an objective for myself. The other thing that I might do is, if we think about technologies always changing, if new technology is being rolled out, I will make that as a goal for myself to make sure that my team, that I know it well enough to be able to answer to my team. So if they're having questions about it. So it really is when you think of objectives, a lot of the times I see assistants say, oh, we can have standard objectives. I don't actually think you can, because it's very much in regards to your role within your team, within your firm. And you have to understand how your firm operate and how you sit within that to create objectives that are meaningful for you. And that's really important. So I think that's most probably the best way to do it. And if you have a great relationship with your executive as well, speak to them about it. It's really important that they understand that you're wanting to really embed yourself into the team and become a vital part of that team, not only as an executor, so fulfilling everything that they want, but as a participant so that you can share your ideas and thoughts at the table.
That is so crucial. And I think we talk a lot about objectives and key results. How do we align to that of leadership? And how do we take those company goals, those departmental goals, and cascade down to how an assistant should approach that? And I'm actually, you guys, I think I'm just going to make a little clip out of what you just said, because I think it is so perfect in how you capture what objectives are important to you. Because like you said, you're not a finance expert, but you are an expert in your administrative profession, and that's how you can, and that strategic thinking is how you support those leaders in their own specialties in that way. And I think that is so important.
Definitely. I think sometimes we tie ourselves in knots when we hear, okay, I need to be strategic, so I need to understand the business. I do understand my business at a high level. So I know the different departments, the different areas, the synergies. I know the synergies for my team. But am I a student of that? Not in the same way that I am of administration, because that's my specialization and that's what my team come to me for. So I often liken it to, if I go to the doctors, I might see the nurse who gives me my jabs and has a specialization as a nurse, but my doctor is there for a different reason, and a consultant has a different speciality, but they're all professionals. But I wouldn't go to my nurse and expect them to perform surgery. So if we as an assistant, I don't expect somebody to come to me and say, how do I manage this fund? Because that's not my specialization within that team. I expect them to come to me and say, Sim, we have this massive project that's happening. How do we best align it? What's the best way we can collaborate over it? And I might say, okay, why don't we set up the meetings like this, do them this often? It doesn't have to be 2 weeks or 4 weeks. It can be 6 weeks. We can do 3 weeks. We can do 12 days. We need to get out of the habit of always saying, okay, this meeting's an hour. This one's 30 minutes. Does it have to be a meeting? Can it be a 15-minute call? Does it have to be a call? Can it be dropped on an email? That's how I bring my specialization to the table. And I think we just need to get more confident doing that. And the one tip I would say is that we are often the specialist in our team. So nobody knows administration like you do. But make sure you actually know it. In that same thing where if you go to the doctor and you say, okay, I have this and I've looked it up on the internet and I think it's this, and then they turn around and say, okay, let me Google it too. You're not going to be impressed with that, because they should know, right? So when your executive comes to you and says, oh, I've got this great idea of how we can structure something and to make it work administratively, and you think, I'm not really sure, what's your idea? They're coming to you because you're the expert. And the more you realize that, it's not to say that you need to know everything, but the more you say, okay, that's a really good idea, let me think it through and come back to you, is the more they will see you as that expert, and it actually builds confidence in you. Because I wasn't like this 8 years ago. I was good at my job, but I wouldn't have been here talking to you the way I'm talking now. But over time, I now view myself as the expert at what I do. I don't know how to use Excel inside out. I'm not Microsoft trained to that level. But administration, I think I know well. And if I don't know something, I'll make sure I'll go and find out so that I can go back and bring something to the table that somebody else can't. That builds your confidence, that gives you the expertise level, and people begin to see that.
And I think there's something so crucial that you have said several times today is team. What role you play as part of your team. And that is the first step in really approaching this mindset. And I think that another question we had come through is, how do I insert myself more into meetings or just start meetings that I think should happen? And recognizing that you're a part of a team within that department and in that firm or in your company is what gives you that confidence to say, hey, no, we actually need time to talk about this, and here's why. And taking that initiative to either get yourself in the meetings you think you should be in or start the meetings you think need to happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I often have to step back and think about the journey I've been on, because where I am now, my mindset is different to where I was 8-9 years ago. But I do think, look at your company culture. And I always say, look at where you are, because where I was, everybody went to the team meeting, right? So if a new grad came in or a new person came in, they were automatically part of the team and went to the team meeting. So if you are on the planner for the team meeting, go to the team meeting. There will be times when you might not be able to. I'm in the position where my executives don't need their phones covered all of the time. So right now in this with you, all of my executives now I'm offline. So, but if you are in the position where you are not having to answer the phone because the rest of your team are in a meeting, go to the team meeting. Now, it could be 80-90% of what is happening in there may go over your head. You might not understand the terminology, but you begin to hear it. You begin to hear it and pick up on it. And that 10% is actually beneficial to you. And in every large organization, there's always some administrative update. So whether it's you need to complete compliance training or make sure holiday is booked properly, or there is always something. So instead of your executive taking that time to do those updates, if that's their responsibility, if you find that they're doing it a lot, just speak to your executive and say, look, I know that in our team meetings, you normally do an update on these administration things. How about I take those from you? So I can write down all of the things that I think are administrative things that you need to know, and then I can make those announcements. Because not only are you in the room, you're then in the room, seen in the room, and heard. Because otherwise, if you just go to the room, you could just be a chair. Everybody goes into a room, they expect the table to be there, they expect the chair to be there. They don't really take notice. So when your people see and hear you in the room, because then it really, you become part of that team. You're not just a supporting player like a team or a desk or a phone. You're a participating player, which really does help.
And I think it will, and this is in any role, you know, I've noticed this in my career in marketing. When you start to do those things, all of a sudden you're starting to be included so much more, you know, without you having to insert yourself. You know, once you set that precedence of, here's my role, here's why I'm here, here's my specialty, it really starts to make a difference. Oh, and I think we lost, 1 second, guys. I think we just lost Simone. Oh no. Let's give her 1 second. She just kind of popped off the stream. We'll take a quick break. Quick breather. I'm going to get Simone back on the stream here. In the meantime, if you do want to drop in your questions for Simone, go ahead and drop those in the chat.
Okay, my connection went. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I hope you got my message to say that. Oh no, I've just lost you mid-flow.
No, it was actually a good mic drop moment. It was like, I said what I needed to say, and now I'm getting, no, it was perfect. I'm glad you're back.
Sorry, I don't know if I've missed something, but I have seen a question in the chat, so I'd like to answer that, if
Let's
that's
get to
okay.
it.
So
Yeah,
the
of
question
course.
is, my supervisor is an island. We don't have weekly meetings, just emails with tasks. How do I learn about the goal for the team without the meetings? I know the company goals and mission, but not the team. So I think this is something that it's something that is a work in progress. So I often say, a lot of our supervisors, managers, they know how to work with people who are just like them. So they know how to work with the other team members because that's how they work. They're finance professionals or they're HR professionals. Or when you are the only person who is administration, they might not know how to work with us. And that's where we have to almost play a training with them. Now, I don't necessarily think that you need to have weekly meetings with your individual executive. So if you don't have team meetings, then you can't put yourself into a team meeting. And that's really hard. It's harder to manage this and put yourself into something, especially when we're working remotely. But one of the things that I have learned, so I have two pieces of technology now that are my lifelines. One is Teams, the other is OneNote. Because my team is 45 people and I have 3 executives, I cannot be having meetings with them all of the time, but there is information that I need from them. And also, I don't want a billion emails coming through to me every 5 minutes. So on OneNote, I've created a OneNote for each of my executives, and it's where I've actually trained them to use this. So unless it's urgent, it goes in, any requests go in OneNote. And we actually have conversations in OneNote. So we type in there what I need from them is there. And if something I need from them is not being answered there, I will then call them and say, I'm desperately trying to do this for you, but unless you keep me in the loop, I can't make your life better. I can't make it easier for you. So I know that some people have regular meetings every Monday, maybe every Friday, because that works for their execs. For my exec, we used to have 15 minutes on a Monday because we sat back to back. So it was really easy. If she wasn't there, I didn't have it. If she was there, I had it. I didn't need it to do my role. When we came to remote working, I actually said to her, do you want me to put that time in every Monday? Or shall we work with OneNote and then when we need each other, we will just call or we'll put time in? And the reason why I did that is because everybody's lives, when they went home, they suddenly had to juggle home and work. So taking 15, 20 minutes out of somebody's day could be quite impactful when I'm already having to put longer blocks in their day so that they could make lunch because they couldn't just run out to the shop and get it, or because they had to pick up their children, or because children were there. So I think it's really important that the lines of communication are open between you and the person that you're trying to support. And if you are having frustrations with them, you need to say, and always say it from their perspective. I am unable to support you effectively or help you manage your load or your time if I don't know what is impacting you. And because I'm not in your sphere, because I can't hear you picking up the phone, because I can't see you walking away, or because I can't see people walking up to you or ringing you every 5 minutes, it makes it very hard for me to do that. So these are ways that I can help you, and actually go with a solution. Go with something that you think, these are things that I've seen and I might be able to help you with. Or if there isn't anything you've seen, actually ask them, what's the thing that is bugging you most right now that I might be able to help you with? Because I think you need to open that communication up, because simply they might not know that, one, you're willing to do it, two, you're capable of doing it, or three, that they're allowed to ask you. Because a lot of people just see assistance as the traditional. They don't think of things that you can have more impact on. So I think the onus is on us as well to see if we can open that up. Now, we can't change everybody. So it could be, unfortunately, that your manager feels, actually, you know what, this is just the way I work and that's just the way I work. Then it comes to a point of you thinking, okay, can I continue to work like this? And is this the role for me? If you find that you can't, or you find that you're unable to use your skill sets the way you want, have an honest conversation and then just try and look for something else. It's not everybody you can change, and it's not every role that's going to be perfect for you, but you have to communicate it, because nobody's going to know what you want or need or want to do unless you say. It's us as assistants who are mind readers. It's not the other way around.
And I can't go without plugging base for just a slight second, because that is the foundation of what we call our free 30-day challenge. And a part of that challenge too is it is proactively approaching the leader you support and saying, can you tell me what is most important to you? What are the biggest roadblockers? I need to know these things in order to effectively support you. And part of that too, whether you're using whatever tool you use, at Base, we have Decision Stream, which I know some of you like swear by, and that streamlines all of those conversations. I know, Simone, you mentioned OneNote. We have our digest that serves as that executive source of truth that takes, an hour or even 20 minutes out of their day to know, what do I need to be focusing on? If it's not on my digest, it's not important, because I know that my assistant has prioritized what's most important. And it really is. It's just so crucial. And it does seem like, and we know so many of you already do this, but having that direct conversation of, you need to tell me how, like, just almost saying, tell me how I can help you. Like, let's break it down by what's most important this week, what's most important next week. My assistant Meredith, she's so great. She always asks me every Thursday, what would feel like winning next week? Because even if I can't say, I'll think, oh my gosh, I don't know. I need to figure out how do I have to prioritize. Just having that perspective can help her look at what's coming up, what needs to happen, and help me structure my schedule, or, push a meeting if it needs to be pushed. Things like that make such a difference.
Definitely. And I think some things come down to the confidence that you have. And I know it's hard being an assistant. There are a couple of things coming through. I'm going to pick up, I think, Pat has said in the university setting there is a hierarchy and no attention given to TAs being leader assistants, and it's very frustrating. I understand that frustration. It's not just in universities, and I don't think it's done on purpose. I do believe that there is a blind spot when it comes to assistants, and I think it's a blind spot both ways. So in the same way that I gave my experience about, I was an assistant for 13, 14 plus years, and I never really looked up from the fact that I am just being good for the position I am in now and being best and great and knocking it out the park, but not really looking at my profession and understanding what's around it. Most of the people that we work for, they have no clue what good assistants look like unless they've had one. And a lot of the time there isn't a structure to support it. So I think sometimes what we need to do is actually show them what it looks like and start to get other assistants in our team, in our group, to do that. So that's what we started to do with the network, and that's how we are able to bring new structures and working structures into the company. It's not because that they didn't want to, it's simply because it had never been shown to them before. So I think when I started the network in EMEA, I was an administrative assistant. I wasn't supporting the most senior person in the firm. I didn't have what people would say would be a leader. Right now, I still I don't support C-suite. I never have in the 15 years that I've been working for in the firm. But again, it's not about, if you think about leadership is not about a title, right? When I say that I am global chair, everybody who sits and leads a network strategically, they are global chairs. Some are co-chairs. I happen to be the global chair of GAIN, right? So, but I was running the network before I was formally given the title. And in EMEA, I was running the network without the title. So I think sometimes we think of leadership as being a title, and it's not. Leadership is about you being able to do something that encourages and motivates someone else. That's what a leader is. I'm not a manager of people. None of the assistants who are at the firm reporting to me. I don't have a reporting line. But I think it's really important that it comes down to you understanding what is missing and taking the initiative to think, okay, this is missing. Can I do something in my own department that makes a difference? And then other people hear about it and it makes a bigger difference. And then people then ask you because you suddenly become the expert and you start to influence other people. So don't necessarily look at, and it's not always easy, and I know it can be different even culturally. So I know our assistants who sit in Asia, it's very different because culturally that it's just the way we speak and act is different. I also know that I think in New York is a little bit more hierarchical and it's viewed more like this is not your place. But I also think it's really important to build relationships. So I build relationships with everybody I meet because that's how I get my job done. And it's important. And I think if people get to know you as an individual and they know why you're doing it, I did this because if I could bottle how I feel on a Monday morning or how empowered I feel because of knowing what I know now about administration and being able to help and support other people in my firm externally, if I could bottle that and give it to assistants just so they could feel it, I would. Because it is such a change. I love my job. I really love my job. When it's hard, I love my job. When it's tiring, I love my job. When I've got my kids sitting on my lap in the middle of a meeting, I love my job because I've been empowered by it. And so I think it's really important for you to have a love of it and a passion for it, and opportunities will come to you. You won't even have to look for them. And somebody else also is talking about my book list. We'll do that right at the end because a couple of people I know have said, what am I reading? And you can see my books here, so I'll drag some of them out, but I'll leave that to the end and I'll show you them.
Yes, I was going to say we will definitely get to the book list. But before we do, I know we only have about 10 minutes left. And also, thank you guys for putting up with my allergies. I've been muting myself to sneeze. I was telling Simone before this, there's so much pollen falling, and I woke up this morning like so congested. So thank you for putting up with that. Before we jump to your book list, I wanted to talk on this. Continue on this notion of your title does not define you. And when we first spoke, I think it was now a couple of months ago, you had said, I never understood why the success of an assistant was tied to those that they supported. And that is something that, it's your mission to change, and that's part of what GAIN does as well. Can you speak a little bit on that and how that can affect how you approach your role and become happy even in those hard times, and be fulfilled in the work that you're doing?
Sure. Now, again, this is not company specific, but it can be company specific. So let me explain it. We've already had discussions where some companies are hierarchical, so they actually have a corporate structure. Other companies have what you call, the word's just gone from my head, functional titles. So you're the head of something else. So it's not like managing director, etc. It's just a functional title. Now, with assistants, I found across the globe, it's very rare within an organization that you have a title that is given to an assistant because of the impact that they personally have made. It's normally because their title relates to whom they support. So if we think about C-suite assistants, they may have a title because they support somebody who sits on the C-suite. Now, normally, you would think that they would have a certain amount of responsibility, which they do, or they have a skill set or behavior pattern. But when I look at it now, after being in this world for such a long time, I see assistants who are supporting C-suite executives because they were the friend of somebody and they've come in and they've never had assistant experience. Or I see assistants who are supporting someone because they were there when the person came into the company, and then the company that executive's being promoted, so the assistant's promoted with them. And I think that's great as long as the assistant is there because of their impact. Now, some people might think, but what does it matter? I think it matters if you think of when we look in our organizations, we always want the best person for a particular job. But if a person is always linked to the person whom they support, how do you know that you're getting the best person for that job? Also, think of it the other way around. You could be working really, really hard and outgrowing and developing, and because titles are given on whom you support, you might not get any recognition because you're supporting the wrong person. And if there are only a certain amount of people that you get that title with, it can be really demotivating. So I think although titles aren't important, because titles do not stop you from growing, most organizations have some form of recognition via a title system because it's motivating. It gives you somewhere to work towards. So I find that there are a lot of assistants who are looking for they're looking for titles, not necessarily thinking this is the greatest role for me, but I know if I go and support that person, I get that title and that might mean a pay increase, but the role might be completely wrong for you. So we also have to think about what is it that our role is and where do we want to be and who do we want to do that with? I know that personally, because of my family and what I do with the network, I wouldn't necessarily be able to give a C-suite executive that dedicated time. I know I wouldn't necessarily be able to be off my phone not ringing or me not even looking at it for an hour. So I know that not that I couldn't do it, but I don't want to do it. And because I'm not chasing a title, it doesn't matter because I can be the leader that I am in this space. And I think that's something that assistants need to start looking at more, because I feel sometimes we're so focused on title, and it's not just assistants, a lot of people do it, a lot of professionals do it, but we're so focused on a title or believing that this role will give us the gravitas that we need, that we don't actually think about the role in itself, and we may hate it. And I think it's really nice to have your own gravitas. Let people know you for what you bring to the table, what your specialization is, so that when your executive leaves, it doesn't actually matter because people know you for you. So people know me for Simone White. A lot of people don't. They know me as the leader of GAIN and they have no clue whom I support until they come into that world and they realize, oh, you support that? Yeah. And I'm going to manage this. But it's really nice to know that I have both aspects. So people know me as Simone, people know me as Simone, the assistant too. But fundamentally, it's because of the skill set that I have, not the fact that I'm linked to an executive. And that's so empowering.
Absolutely. And that's something we believe here at BASE is that, every knowledge worker should be supported by an assistant because of that impact they provide to the team and general to those they support, not that because they're a C-suite at a company.
Yes.
Our goal is to create more administrative professional positions because every knowledge worker should have access to the support they provide because it is so impactful. So I love that. With our last couple minutes, I think people are dying to know your reading list. And I'm going to take note too, guys, so that way I can send it in the follow-up email as well. So I'll go ahead and make sure I note that too.
Well, there's actually a gap here because there's one book that I'm rereading and it's Know Your Why by Simon Sinek. And so I've got a gap here. I have yet to read this one. I've read the back, so I just love the title. But that's on my reading list. Wolf Pack by Abby Wambach. So if you don't know, she is a professional footballer and played for the USA team. And I just think the experience of being in a space that people don't expect you to be and hearing experiences about that is empowering. So I don't necessarily read books that are by assistants. I have some, but actually any book that encourages you and empowers you, I pick up. So I have that. I also have and listen to the podcast, Brené Brown, Dare to Lead. If you haven't listened to her podcast, please go listen. She's done a really great one recently. It's actually Simon Sinek's podcast with Brené Brown. I think that was about 3 weeks ago. So please feel free to do that. And then I do have some assistant books as well. So I have Phoenix Normand, As I See It. Very good. You can see we did this as a book review for GAIN. So Leader Assistant by Jeremy Burrows. Great podcast as well. So I have that. I loved this one. So this is More Than Enough by Elaine Welroth. So she was the first person of color to be the editor-in-chief at Teen Vogue. And I love her story about being in a room where people didn't expect her to be as a person of color. And she gives an experience of being at an intern somewhere with 2 other people, and it was assumed, the person just said to her, I think you're really great, and when I become editor-in-chief, I'll hire you. And it was that thing as if we're all on the same level, but you assume that I wouldn't be editor-in-chief. And I just thought, oh, I can so relate to that. So that was a really good book. I could go on. This was actually a gift, speaking publicly. One of my executives gave me this book, Speeches That Change the World. And I thought it was such a thoughtful gift, because he said to me, Sim, you talk brilliantly, but you don't share of yourself. So it's like you disappear and you don't bring Sim to the table, but all of these speakers brought their self to the table. Hence the reason you see myself, like you see my books, you see my children's pictures. This is me, because I think then you're seeing the authentic person. And I love that book. And then the last one I'll show you was this. So I was reading this and then realized it was really big, and so I got the podcast and listened to him instead. And him and Michelle have just great voices to listen to. So I think I could go on forever, but I think that's a good start.
I love it. Yeah, and I wrote all those down, guys. I noted them down, and I'll be sure to include them in the follow-up. Thank you so much for sharing that, Simone. Really appreciate it. And actually, in our book club next week, next Thursday, we are discussing the leader assistant. So if you want to join that, I'm going to drop the link in the chat, guys. And I believe Jeremy will actually be there to discuss parts of his book, which is great.
I met him.
Wonderful.
We both did a conference in Frankfurt. That's where I first met him.
Oh, fun!
And, yeah. So yeah, when we did our leader assistant reading for our GAIN network, he did an introduction for us, which was really nice. So all the assistants at BlackRock got to have an introduction from Jeremy, which was really cool.
I love it. Oh, that's great. We love Jeremy here at Base. And we love you too. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, anytime. We are so happy to have you. And if you haven't connected with Simone or follow her on LinkedIn, make sure you do so. I'll include the link to her profile in the follow-up email as well. And if you have any other questions, feel free to keep, start creating your own network here in the community. There's 3,000 of you in Facebook alone, and we're almost to 2,000 on YouTube. So start dropping your LinkedIn profiles in the chat, in the comments, and start to connect with each other. And take advantage of this moment. Thank you so much, Simone, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And thank you, everyone, for joining today.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing some time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Bye.